So in today's video, I'm going to teach how to do skin retouching with frequency separation. So for those of you who don't know what frequency separation is a skin retouching technique where you can actually separate your image into the textures and then layers, and then you can retouch your picture. Okay. So with this said, let's go into how frequency separation is done. So the first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to duplicate your background. Okay. And when you duplicate your background, one way to duplicate your background is to right click here and then click duplicate layer. Or if you want to use a keyboard shortcut, it's Control J. Okay. So you want to duplicate your background twice. And what you're going to do is that the first layer, just to organize your workflow, you can name this first layer a color layer. Okay. And then the next layer is going to be your texture. All right. So when you do this, the color layer is going to allow you to work separately on the colors, and then the texture layer is going to allow you to work separately on the textures. By colors, I mean the skin tones, and then by textures, I mean skin imperfections, like blemishes and the rest, okay? So let's first start working on our color layer. The first thing we're going to do with our color layer is we go to filter, and then we go to blur, Gaussian blur, then we select the area on the skin, okay? First turn your radius down to 0.1 so you can see better. So we select the area on the skin where we think has the most of blemish. So somewhere here is what I can see, okay? And it will appear zoomed out here. Then what you want to do is that you want to keep increasing your radius until that area starts becoming out of focus, okay? It starts becoming blurred or it starts becoming smooth, okay? So let me show you guys. At 3, we can still see some of the imperfections. So we bump this up a bit. 4.2. Only at the moment where it starts to disappear is where you want to stop with your radius. Okay. So right here, I can see that everything is becoming smooth. So let me just stop at 5. Okay. So I've stopped right here with 5. So my color layer is fine for me. So on my texture layer, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to select this texture layer. So make sure your texture layer is selected. Then you want to separate the texture layer from the color layer. So what you want to do is that you go to image and then apply image. Depending on the kind of image you're working with, whether it's a 16-bit image or it's an 8-bit image, your settings are going to be slightly different. Okay. So we said we want to separate this from the color layer. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to change this layer to color. Okay. Channel will continue to be at RGB. Our blending mode will be add. And if you're using a 16-bit image, you'd like to invert this, check invert, okay? If you're using an 8-bit image, what you want to do is that your blending mode will be at subtract and invert will not be checked on. But if I'm using a 16-bit image, I use add and I check invert, okay? For the two settings, your scale should be at 2, your offset should be at 0. Whether you're using a 16-bit or an 8-bit image, scale at 2 and offset at 0, okay? And then leave preserve transparency and mask unchecked. Then you hit OK. So what we can see here is that this is showing us our textures. So we separated this, okay, from our color layer. And all we can see currently is only textures on the skin. All right. So from here, what do? We are going to, if you don't want this gray thing, not like if you don't want it, you definitely not want it. So what we want to do is that you change the blend mode from here to linear light, okay? From normal to linear light on your texture layer. Now we want to work on our colors. So we're going to turn off our texture. So with the colors, we want to use the colors for smooth transitions of skin color, okay? We don't want one skin color to be looking like it's entirely different from the skin. So we want to have a gradual transition between the skin colors. That is why we do a blending of the colors on the color layer. All right. So let me show you guys what I mean. When you're doing your blending on the color layer, the tool we use is called the mixer brush tool. And your mixer brush tool is going to be underneath here, underneath your brushes. Okay. So you right click on your brushes, mixer brush tool. How I like my settings is I like to keep my wet at 9, load at 75, mix at 90, and the flow of 100. Okay, I learned this from a fellow YouTuber. and his name is Ronix, so you guys can check him out. So wet 9, load 75, mix at 90, and flow at 100. So the next thing that we want to do, okay, is to make sure that, so I like to use these settings. Let me just cut. I like to use these settings, wet 9, 75, mix 90, and flow of 100 when I'm working on portraits, okay? If I'm doing pictures from events and I don't want to make this look too smooth, I like to use the settings of wet 2, okay, load of 25, mix of 25, and then my flow somewhere between 60 and 80. So you can write that down somewhere. But right now we're working on portraits, which is what I do most of the time. Wet at 9, load 75, mix 90, and flow 100, okay? And you want to make sure that this option here, which says clean brush after every stroke, is checked on, okay? Leave this unchecked, and then you want to make sure that your brush is set to clean brush. If your brush is not set to clean brush and is set to a color over here, when you're painting, you'll actually see that color over here. So there are times where you start painting and then maybe you see white, okay? Just undo and then go here and then make sure that your brush is set to clean brush. All right. So with your hardness of your brush, you're going to keep this down at 0, and you want to make sure that you're using a soft round brush for your colors, okay? So with this, just keep your image zoomed out like this, it's fine. And for the area of skin you want to work on, just make sure that your brush is just almost the same size or slightly bigger as that area, all right? So if you find an area where you feel like the skin colors are not blending, then you paint from that area into the area where you want the color to blend, okay? So let's start. To adjust the size of your brush, you can easily use the curly brackets. The curly bracket on the left is to make your brush smaller, and on the right to make your brush bigger, okay? So left smaller, right bigger. If not, you can adjust the size in here, which I find quite stressful if you have to keep moving in and out to do that. So the keyboard shortcut is your curly bracket, all right? Okay, so let's go back to our mixer brush tool, color layer selected, and then we start to paint. So I observe that the colors here are not the most even. So I paint from up to down, okay, to even the colors right here. And then also this way to even the colors. I hope you guys are seeing what's happening, okay? So like, I don't want to zoom in because I like to keep my image zoomed out while I'm doing this, but just to show you guys what is happening. This area of skin is not really the same as this one. So I want to paint from here, and you want to make sure that you're following your model's face, okay? So like this, just to even the colors. As you guys can see, that's what is happening, okay? So let me zoom out and then continue my painting. All right, so I'd want to make sure the colors here are the same. Color under the eye also. So, so paint in the direction of your model's face, okay? Make sure that you're not going outside the direction of your model's face. It's going to actually save you a lot of work. So from here, you want to sample the skin colors from the forehead. Make sure that the forehead is uniform. And as you can see, I'm painting in the direction of the model's face, okay? When you're over the nose area, what you want to do is you want to make your brush quite small and then paint in a straight line. If not, once you don't get the nose right, you're going to alter the shape of your model's face, okay? So let's make the colors here uniform, right? All right, so now we're painting over the chin area. You want to make sure that the colors in the chin are also uniform. And now let's come to the skin, okay? I want the colors here and the colors here to match. So I'm going to sample from this area. Not sample from this area. I'm going to paint from this area over this area, okay? So as you can see, the skin is looking smooth. And don't worry about your image looking blur because our texture layer actually turned off. So the moment we bring that in, our skin is going to look fine. So just make sure right now that you're getting all your colors right. paint in the direction of the model skin, and make sure that you're getting in there, okay? Try not to paint from one point of the skin into the other. By that, I mean, like, let's say from the hand into the neck, okay? You're going to have funny looking colors. It's just going to look like you skipped over a bridge. Let me show you. If you do something like this, okay? You can see that this transition here is not the nicest thing. So I'm going to undo. All right. So treat each part of the body individually. Go back just a bit on the face that I want to do right here. Okay, that looks clean now. So we're going to do the same for our neck and then our chest, okay? So I want us to sample this area, paint over this. I'm doing too much. Right. So just make sure you're doing a very good job with your painting and don't rush it because skin retouching is actually one of the delicate parts of your retouching. Okay, once you get that right, you are actually on track to do a good job for your retouch. Okay, so as you can see, we're almost done, almost done. Right now, we're on the arm, and let me show you guys a before and an after. Before, after. Okay, as you can see, we have way smoother skin now. And once we're done with our colors, we want to turn on our texture layer, okay? So our texture layer is turned on. And for a better workflow, one thing I'd like to mention is that group your frequency separation layers, okay? So the color and texture layer, you group them, and then you can name them whatever you want. You can name them frequency separation. For the sake of this video, I'm just going to name them FS. It's shorter, okay? So to see your before and after, you just have to turn off the FS group, before and after. Okay. So mind you've only worked on the colors and then you can see the big change that we have in our image. So now let's go and work on our textures. With textures, like we mentioned before, we're going to use the textures to remove any imperfections on the skin. Okay. So we use our textures to remove imperfections on the skin area. All right. So in our texture layer selected, what I like to use to remove imperfections are the clone stamp tool. So if you're using the clone stamp tool and then, or any brush tool, and then you see your tool in the plus, with the plus cursor, okay? What it means is that your caps lock key is turned on. So you just want to turn off your caps lock and then you continue. Okay, so caps lock currently turned off. With the clone stamp tool, what we want to do is that we want to sample an area. We want to sample from right here, and then you click over here. So you want to sample an area that is actually near to the skin. You can zoom out and make sure that you're getting, I said zoom out. You can zoom in and make sure that you're getting things as they should be. So Alt to sample, to pick a sample area, and then click over your destination. All right. So let's go and do that for all the blemishes right here. And make sure that your sample from here is set to current layer, okay? Don't set it to current layer and below, just set it to current layer. Opacity at 100, flow at 100, and then you continue. All right, so sample, paint, sample, paint, sample, click, sample, click, sample, click, sample, click. And yeah, if you want to fill this crevice, same thing, okay? All right, so now it comes to this bit around the lip over here. If you would want to remove it, that also entirely depends on you. If it's actually like a skin feature on the model that you want to keep, you would keep it. But for the sake of this video, I'd want to remove it. And you can either use the clone stamp tool, okay? So you sample one area of the skin, then you click over this, okay? Or if you don't want to do that, you can use the patch tool, okay? Just make sure you're not selecting the patient. Just make sure you're not selecting the model's lip, okay? This lip line. Be very careful not to select that. All right. And then when you select over the patch area, you just drag it to the part of the skin where you want to replace this, okay? So you can keep looking through which one looks good and think. Just make sure that this use pattern is actually checked off, and then you drag to the part of the skin where you feel like actually makes the difference. So I think this looks good. Control D, right? There's another technique to remove this, and with that you have to select the entire lip and then invert your selection, then you paint over that. But I'm going to show you guys in a separate video. For now, let's focus on our frequency separation. So we're done with the textures. With frequency separation, I'm not of the assertion that you should remove everything on the client's face. Try to keep your image slightly natural, okay? Because you want to get a natural look, unless you want to do like a very big edit on a beauty shot, just maybe for a makeup brand or something, then you have to remove everything, okay? But for now, keeping the image natural is the way I like to edit. So I leave things here like this, and once you're done, the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're giving your model a uniform skin tone. In this particular picture, I feel like our model has an even tone, so I'm going to teach you guys how to do that with a different image. Then the next thing I want to show you guys is how to whiten teeth, okay, using Photoshop. All right, so with this image, I'd say that we have our frequency separation done because we've removed our textures, we've evened our colors. So as you can see, before and after, and this image looks way better now. Okay. Before you start frequency separation, make sure that you've done your color grading. Okay, I can't emphasize on that any louder. Before you start frequency separation, make sure that you've already done your color grading. So I'm actually fine with the skin tones of this particular model. I don't want to do too much. This looks very natural to me. And I'm now going to show you guys how to whiten teeth using Photoshop. So I have another picture of this model where she has some teeth, and I'm going to open that. All right. So to whiten teeth, the first thing you'd want to do is you'd want to create a hue and saturation layer. All right. Hue and saturation. And then you turn off your saturation all the way to -100. Okay. So once you turn off your saturation to -100, you see that we have something like a black and white image. So we want to paint in whites into the teeth. All right. So what we want to do is that we have our layer mask here set to white, which is actually revealing, and we don't want the entire black and white. We only want that over the teeth. So we're going to invert this layer mask to black. All right. So Control plus I to invert this to black. So anytime we use white to paint, it means that we're revealing. And since we're on a mask, we want to change our brush tool, our mixer brush tool back to the brush tool, okay? With a flow of 100, opacity set to 100, we are actually going to paint this. So our foreground color should be white because we want to reveal what's on the black layer. Then now we begin to paint, okay? So as you can see, our teeth are getting whiter. So you really have to zoom in there and then do all your cleaning right here. If you mistakenly paint over any area you don't want to paint over, just hit X to change your colors back, and then you use the black color to bring back in what you painted out. Okay. So now back to white, and then trying to get our teeth to be white. Okay. So the inner bit here, don't worry too much about it, because if you end up painting the inner bit to be white, your image will start looking a bit fake, okay, a bit edited, and that's not what we want. All right. So you keep painting. So just make sure you're getting in there with your painting, like right here. And one thing I like to mention is that this same technique applies for the eyes, just that in our case, our model had white eyes, so we're not really doing that, okay? If you start doing that on a model with white eyes, you would notice that you are actually getting a different color outside white, and it's not really the best thing. So right now you can see that our teeth are white, but this white kind of looks plasticky, okay? So I'd like to switch down the opacity a bit, just not to make the teeth look too white, and somewhere around 80 looks quite natural, okay? So if you also want, you can still keep decreasing the effect to a point where it looks slightly more natural, okay? So before and after, before and after. If you stick to the end of this video, thank you. I hope you now know how to do your frequency separation, how to use your texture and then your color layers. And then in the next video, I'm going to show you guys how to get a uniform skin tone for your patient. Patient once again for your model. Okay, so how to get a uniform skin tone for your model. If you actually want this, let me just delete this and I'll show you. So I have an action right here that I use for teeth whitening. Okay, it's my own custom action. And how an action works is that you just click it and then you click play, and then it gives you this. So all you just have to do is to select your brush and then paint. Okay, in my action I already have it selected and it selects the white for you. All you just have to do is to paint. So if you want this particular action, just comment action or comment send the action or whatever it is that has to do with actions. Okay, just send it and then I would find a way to send that action to you. Okay, so thank you very much for staying. I'll see you guys in the next video where I show you guys how to find a uniform skin tone for your model. I tried my best not to say patient this time.